There is a room behind a canvas. Mia is standing in the studio of the man she loves, and her hands are shaking. Not from the immunosuppressants she takes every 12 hours, not from the arrhythmia that occasionally reminds her that the heart inside her chest once beat inside a stranger. Her hands are shaking because the door she has just opened was never supposed to be opened. And taped to every inch of every wall are photographs of her. Dozens of them. Some taken from across a street. Some through the window of a cafe she thought she had discovered on her own. Medical charts she has never authorized anyone to see. Lab results with her cyclosporin levels circled in red. A timeline, handwritten in obsessive detail, that begins not on the day they met, but on the day she received a heart. She can hear Leo's footsteps behind her now, crossing the studio floor, and before he even speaks, she already understands the shape of the lie. Every coincidence, every preference he seemed to already know. Every time he placed his hand flat against her sternum and whispered, "I can feel it beating," as though it were the most romantic gesture in the world. He was never talking to her. He was never listening to her heartbeat. He was listening for his brother's. And the worst part? The part that makes her grip the doorframe until her knuckles go white, is that some desperate, lonely, transplant-scarred corner of her soul already knew. To understand how Mia arrived in that room, you need to understand what it means to live inside a body that has been rebuilt with borrowed parts. Mia Ellison was diagnosed with dilated cardiomyopathy at 23 years old. For those unfamiliar, dilated cardiomyopathy is a condition in which the heart's left ventricle, the main pumping chamber, stretches and thins like an overworked balloon. It cannot pump blood efficiently. It cannot sustain a life. Over time, the muscle weakens so profoundly that the organ simply gives out. There is no reversal. There is no exercise regimen, no supplement, no prayer vigorous enough to rebuild a heart that has decided to stop being a heart. The only intervention that offers any real chance at a normal lifespan is a transplant, and a transplant requires something no one wants to say out loud. Mia waited 14 months on the list. She was 24 years old, 91 pounds, and sleeping upright because lying flat made her feel like she was drowning in her own chest when the call came. A 28-year-old male, previously healthy, had suffered a catastrophic brain hemorrhage following a cycling accident. By 11 that night, his heart was inside Mia's body. She survived. She recovered. She was, by every clinical metric, a success story. But here is what the discharge papers do not tell you. When you receive a heart transplant, you do not simply get better. You enter a permanent negotiation with a foreign organ that your immune system will spend the rest of your life trying to destroy. You take immunosuppressants that leave you vulnerable to infections, cancers, kidney damage. You undergo routine endomyocardial biopsies, a procedure in which a catheter is threaded through your jugular vein and into the right ventricle, so doctors can snip tiny pieces of your new heart to check for rejection. And then there's the psychological weight. Survivor's guilt in transplant recipients is not metaphorical. It is a clinically documented phenomenon. Many recipients report intrusive thoughts about their donor, a feeling that they are borrowing time that was stolen from someone else, a strange and irrational sense that the organ carries memory, personality, even emotion. Mia felt all of it. She would press her palm against her chest at night and whisper, "Thank you, I'm sorry. Thank you, I'm sorry," as though the apology and gratitude could coexist in the same breath. She was alive, but she did not feel like the life belonged to her. She met Leo Marin at a community art exhibit on a rainy Saturday in October, 11 months after her transplant. He was standing beside a charcoal portrait of a human ribcage, the bones rendered with anatomical precision, and nestled inside the cage was not a heart, but a bird with its wings folded. Mia stood in front of it for a long time. She told him it was the most honest depiction of a chest she had ever seen. He smiled, and the smile reached his eyes, and she thought, here is a person who understands something about what it means to carry fragile things. Leo was magnetic in the way that deeply wounded people sometimes are. He spoke softly, but with an intensity that made every sentence feel like a confession. He was an artist, self-taught, who painted almost exclusively in themes of anatomy and loss. He told her early on that he had lost his older brother 2 years prior, a cycling accident, a sudden hemorrhage. He said the grief had restructured him at a molecular level, that he sometimes felt like he was living inside a body that no longer recognized itself. Mia, who knew exactly what that felt like, fell in love with him almost immediately. And Leo seemed to fall in love with her, too. He knew she preferred lavender tea over chamomile. He knew she liked to sit on the left side of any room. He knew that she became anxious in hospitals and that the sound of a heartbeat monitor made her cry. She thought it was intuition. She thought it was that rare, almost supernatural attunement that some people have with each other. She thought it was fate. It was none of those things. Their romance accelerated with a velocity that should have been a warning sign, but instead felt like medicine. Leo painted her constantly. He would ask her to sit in natural light, and he would spend hours rendering not her face, but her chest, the vertical scar from her sternotomy, the faint discoloration where the surgical drapes had irritated her skin. She thought he was honoring her survival. She thought he was seeing her the way she wanted to be seen, as someone who had fought for her life and won. He would hold her at night with his ear pressed against her sternum, and she would run her fingers through his hair, and he would say things like, "This heart is extraordinary," and "I feel like I've known this heartbeat my entire life." She interpreted this as poetry. She interpreted this as the language of a man who loved deeply and expressed himself through art and metaphor. Now, if you are watching this and finding yourself emotionally invested in Mia's story, I need to ask you something. Have you subscribed to this channel yet? Because stories like this, stories that sit at the intersection of medical reality and the darkest corners of human connection, are exactly what we do here. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because what comes next in Mia's story is the kind of revelation that changes how you understand love, grief, and the lies we tell in the name of both. Leo began showing subtle signs that Mia, blinded by affection, did not register. He asked questions about her medication schedule with a specificity that exceeded casual concern. He wanted to know her ejection fraction numbers after every echocardiogram. He once, in a moment she later recalled with a chill, asked her if she ever felt the donor's presence, and when she said yes, sometimes, his eyes filled with tears that she mistook for empathy. What Mia did not know was that Leo had spent 6 months before their meeting gathering information. He had contacted the organ procurement organization under the guise of writing a tribute to his brother. He had obtained enough identifying information to locate Mia through social media. He had studied her patterns, her routines, her preferences, not because he wanted to love her, but because he wanted to be near the last living fragment of his brother, Daniel Marin, the 28-year-old cyclist whose heart now beat inside Mia's chest. "7 months into their relationship, Mia found the room. Leo had left for a gallery meeting. She was alone in his studio looking for a clean brush when she noticed that one of the large canvases leaning against the back wall was not leaning against a wall at all. It was leaning against a door. Behind that door was a small, windowless room, and it was a shrine. Photographs of Mia walking to her clinic, printed copies of her transplant records, including her donor match report, which explicitly identified Daniel Marin by name and blood type. A journal in Leo's handwriting that detailed her resting heart rate on specific dates, cross-referenced with activities they had done together, as though he were tracking the organ's performance. And in the center of the room, on a small wooden easel, was a portrait not of Mia, but of Daniel, painted with such tenderness and grief that it made the air feel heavy. Mia read one entry from the journal. It said, "Her resting heart rate was 64 today. Danny's was always 62. I wonder if it's adapting to her body, or if some part of him is still fighting to stay himself. I put my hand on her chest during the movie, and I swear I felt him. I swear he's still in there." Mia did not scream. She did not cry. She sat on the floor of that room and felt something far worse than anger. She felt erased. Every kiss, every whispered affirmation, every night Leo had held her and told her she was extraordinary, all of it had been directed at a dead man's organ. She was not the woman Leo loved. She was the life support system for the only piece of his brother that still had a pulse.
When Leo returned and found her sitting in the room, he did not deny it. He could not. The evidence was architectural. But what he said next was more devastating than the lie itself. He said, "I know what I did is wrong, but Mia, you have to understand. You carry the only part of him that is still alive. When I listen to your heartbeat, I hear my brother. When I hold you, I am holding the last warm thing that is connected to him. I didn't plan to love you, but I do. I love you because you kept him alive." And here is where the story enters the territory that most people are unwilling to examine honestly. Because Mia, sitting on that floor, understood him. She understood the gravitational pull of grief, the way it bends every rational thought toward the thing you have lost. She understood because she had spent 11 months pressing her hand against her own chest and whispering apologies to a stranger. She understood because she too had been obsessed with the donor. She too had wondered if Daniel's consciousness lingered somewhere inside the electrical impulses of his repurposed heart. And in that understanding, she faced the most painful bioethical violation of all. A violation of autonomy so intimate it defied language. Leo had not simply deceived her. He had accessed her protected medical information without consent. He had engineered an entire relationship around a body part she did not choose and could not return. He had treated her not as a person with agency, but as a vessel, a living reliquary for his brother's remains. Every moment of intimacy had been, at its core, a form of trespass. She asked him one question. "When you told me you loved me, who were you talking to?" He opened his mouth. He closed it. And his silence was the most honest thing he had ever given her.
Mia left that night and did not return. But severance, she discovered, is not the same as freedom, because Leo, for all his deception, had given her something she had not been able to give herself. He had made her feel that the heart inside her chest was not a burden or a debt, but something worthy of devotion. He had made her feel, for the first time since her transplant, that she was not living on stolen time. And now, without him, the guilt returned with compound interest. She began attending a transplant support group, something she had avoided for months. She sat in a circle of people who understood the specific loneliness of living with someone else's organ, and she listened, and for the first time, she spoke. She told them about Leo. She told them about the room. She told them that she missed him, and a woman across the circle, a liver recipient in her 50s, said something that broke Mia open. She said, "Honey, the organ isn't the person. The organ is a gift, and a gift, once given, belongs to the one who receives it. not to the one who gave it, and not to the family that lost them. Mia's 1-year post-transplant biopsy came back clean. No signs of rejection. Her ejection fraction was 58%, nearly normal. Her cardiologist told her, with a rare and genuine smile, that she was doing beautifully, that the heart had fully integrated, that it was, for all functional purposes, hers now. She wrote Leo a letter. She did not send it to him. She read it aloud to herself, alone in her apartment, with her hand pressed flat against the scar on her chest. She said, "You loved your brother. I understand that. I carry a piece of him, and I will honor that for the rest of my life. But I am not a museum for Daniel's memory. I am not a shrine. I am a woman who was dying, and your brother's death gave me a chance to live, and I owe it to both of us, to all three of us, to actually live, not as a monument to what was lost, but as proof that the gift meant something. I forgive you, Leo, but I cannot be your way back to him, because this heart is mine now, and I have to let it beat for me." She did not see Leo again. She learned months later through a mutual acquaintance that he had begun grief counseling, that he had dismantled the room, that he was painting landscapes now instead of rib cages. She hoped it was true. She chose to believe it was true. And on the 1-year anniversary of her transplant, Mia did something she had never done. She went for a run. Not far, not fast, just a slow, deliberate jog through the park near her apartment, feeling the heart inside her chest accelerate and respond and carry her forward. And for the first time, she did not think about whose heart it was. She thought about where it was taking her. This story sits at the uncomfortable intersection of love and obsession, grief and possession, medical miracle and ethical violation. And it asks questions that have no clean answers. Where does a donor end and a recipient begin? When we give a piece of ourselves, literally, to keep another person alive, does the family of the donor retain an emotional claim to that organ? Is Leo a villain, or is he a grieving brother who found the only heartbeat in the world that could make him feel close to the person he lost? And is Mia selfish for walking away, or is she, for the first time in her post-transplant life, choosing herself? I want to hear from you. If you were Mia, could you have forgiven Leo? Could you have stayed? And if you were Leo, if the last living echo of someone you loved was beating inside a stranger's chest, how far would you go to stay near it? What would you sacrifice? What lines would you cross? Drop your answer in the comments. Be honest. These stories exist because you engage with them, because you carry them into your own lives and measure them against your own fears and your own capacity for forgiveness. If this story moved you, if it made you uncomfortable, if it made you think about the fragile and sometimes terrifying ways we try to hold on to the people we lose, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not yet subscribed, this is your moment. We tell stories here that live in the space between medicine and the human heart, both the organ and the metaphor. Subscribe, stay, because the next story might be the one that changes how you see everything. This heart is beating. The question is, who does it beat for?